Welcome to the CBC podcast. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to the home of entrepreneurship, modern dating, current events, and much, much more. Thank you for being here. Let's get into this. What are we talking about today? So, today we have very interesting current events. We're sticking with that theme. We rolled off of the political. This is still somewhat political, but you know, it's very appropriate to the current month because we are in Pride Month. The month of June is designated as Pride Month. Everybody knows that. The topic of today's show, though, is has Pride Month gone too far? Has Pride Month gone too far? What do I mean by that? So, first of all, let me give you the definition, the book definition of Pride Month, because I learned this. I didn't know this until I studying for the show. So, Pride Month was established in 1969 following the Stonewall riots, which was a series of gay liberation protests. It is described as a celebration of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender pride. So this has been going on since 1969, which I did not know. Did you know that?
I did not know.
Okay, so this was all news to me when I read that. I said, oh, wow, so this has been going on for quite some time. I never remember it being a problem before. I guess that's why I'm shocked, right? Like it's all of a sudden it's this massive political football, and what better, than to touch on it today?
That should raise an eyebrow.
It
If
should.
it's been around all this time, what's the big deal?
What's the big deal? That's the question. So first of all, let me start by saying this. First of all, as it relates to your choice of sexual preference, whether that's or your identity, whatever the case may be, right? Whether you're gay, straight, trans, whatever you are, is fine with me. It's fine with her. This is not a channel that we don't promote hate here. We've said that multiple times. So whatever your choice is, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, welcome. I have no beef with you guys on the surface. What I have beef with is when it gets into dealing with our children. And I think that that's where the vast majority of Americans kind of stand on this topic. I don't think a lot of people want to talk about it because they don't want to be labeled as anti-LGBTQ because, my God, you can't say anything at all without being labeled, right, by these folks, right? You get called anti-trans. You get, like, if you stand up for female sports, right, and you say that only females should compete against females, you're anti-trans. You're anti-trans. Oh my God, this person. Oh my God, how could you say this stuff? Oh, you don't want equality. Oh my God, right?
If you question what's happening in Target, you're anti-trans.
We're going to talk about Target.
Protect trans kids is
protect trans kids. Yeah. So what happens is, and in the research I did for the show, and I'll share the links in the article or to the articles below in the description box. By the way, like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. We really, really do. Thank you for those who have engaged with us. Like I said, we've been getting some good feedback on our last few videos. So keep it coming. Again, it helps us to improve the show for you. So going back to, so you mentioned Target. Now let me bring that up because that's in my notes. So Target is one of the bigger corporations in America that has really kind of dove headfirst into the pool, so to speak, when it comes to this issue. And most people feel like they went way too far. This based on what I can see. Target and Anheuser-Busch, obviously, we remember the Dylan McVaney stuff that was going. Is it Mulvaney?
Yes.
I always say McIlvaney, right?
Don't do that. It's somebody else's.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, the McIlvaney people out there. I'm very, very sorry. But so Target specifically, their stock is down about 12% since probably was started, or I guess since they announced the campaign in May, I believe it was. Which equates to $9 billion in market cap. Now, Target is a huge corporation, right? But $9 billion is $9 billion. The shareholders felt that, right? Mm-hmm. Through no fault of their own, right? Like they're holding on to the stock and they're like, what happened to my shares? Well, these folks decided to do come on, guys. This to me falls in the comments. It's the clothing things that were going on at Target. You tell me, you have a kid who swims. You tell me, how did you feel about that when you saw that marketing campaign, the bathing suits with the
tuck it?
That. What do you think about that?
I think I felt the same way a lot of mothers did walking through Target with their small children, kind of questioning why this was in the children's section.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it seemed like adult attire and
Mm-hmm.
children of that age, toddler or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, in my history and experience with children, aren't concerned with their sexual parts that early in age.
Right.
And if they are, it usually means that they've been around adults or somebody touched them or something wasn't right. It's not normal for small children to be preoccupied with their sexual orientation, their gender, or their genitalia.
Mm. I think that sums it up really good. And I think that's what most parents with common sense believe, right? Like, I think unless you are just this person who is like hell bent to just agree with everything that your side says, right? Because I know there are some people that will not disagree. Even if they vehemently disagree, they will never say it. Mm-hmm. They will never, ever say it. They'll tell people in the house, hey, I really don't go for that. But they will not admit it in a public forum because, again, they don't want to be labeled as anti-something. They don't want to be an ist or an ism, as we say. So Target's been feeling the pressure. In fact, it was so the heat got so hot that on May 23rd, they actually announced that they were pulling some of those items that you're discussing from the store shelves entirely because, and I don't agree with this, we don't condone violence here, but some of the stores were getting threatened. Like, they were getting bomb threats. People were threatening the employees. It got really nasty. And I just think that the marketing executives and the people at Target they don't know what the real pulse of society is, because they're going way too heavy handed into something that in reality, guys, the LGBTQ community is 7% of the population. It's 7%. So why this massive, like, heavy-handed approach for 7%?
They also partnered with a transgender Satanist or Satanist company. One of the shirts says something with a Satan doesn't mind pronouns, and it's being pushed by a satanic kind of group, clearly, and people had problems with that too. So that wasn't the only thing that they did. They did it all at the same time, and
it's really weird to me. Like, like, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's he invests, I invest, we're in the stock market and stuff like that. Luckily, we weren't holding a target, but we were talking about it, and he was like, dude, I've got to believe they did this on purpose to crash the stock for some reason. Like because it's so stupid, right? Like, it makes no logical sense that a group. Now, we know that the smartest people in the room aren't always the executives, right? Everybody thinks that. Most of the time, they're the stupidest ones in the room. Okay, as we see here, based on what I just read to you, there's a lot of dummies sitting around the room. That sounds like a great idea, right? There's people are not that smart. No. Okay, so let's talk about Anheuser-Busch. Their stock is down about 17% since May the 4th. Their sales have been crashing. I mean, everybody's seen it. I think it was 26 billion was the last number that I heard that they've lost this in total value. They had to start. I was reading about their distributors. They had to give their distributors free beer in order just to keep the distributors afloat because nobody was buying the beer. Right. So the beer that they have that they need to deliver, the beer I don't know how long it keeps. Right. Like, I don't know how long you have to deliver the beer, and
you have to rotate it out.
Yeah. And they had to throw away a lot of beer because the stores were not re-ing up their orders because nobody was buying what was on the shelves. So Anheuser-Busch had to jump in and say, okay, fill them up for free. We got to keep them whole so that they can keep working. Right. So I think they also made a drastic miscalculation, like on number one, what their target audience is, the people that actually drink the beer. Like, I would have to think, you tell me, I would have to believe that most of people who are drinking Bud Light or Budweiser are probably white guys.
Yeah, that work hard every day.
Yeah. It's probably white dudes that are
married,
blue collar guys working hard, guys, probably conservative, most of them, probably the two-parent household, probably husband, wife, kids, normal stuff. It's probably those folks, right? So those are the people that is your target audience that's been buying your stuff for decades and decades and decades, and then you say, okay, let's overcorrect all the way over here and go market this. It doesn't make sense. Like, it makes you think, wait a minute, is there something else behind this? Is this like a social experiment that they're doing just to see what Americans will do? Like, will they buy the stock? Will they sell the stock? Like, it seems like a game to me because it's all too simple to me. Like, I just see it as, I think if they all like, here, okay.
It's too big of a colossal mistake
Right.
made by. I mean, corporate makes mistakes all the time. Let's face it. They push out ideas and try to get the people at the bottom to fix it all the time. That's what corporate does. But this just seems so like eyebrow raising. Like, why?
And just so like out of the blue, like, because again, we just said Pride Month's been going on since 1969. We haven't seen this heavy-handed, like, sledgehammer approach to smashing this stuff. And I think that is why. Now, y'all know me already. I'm a conspiracy guy. I think I know why they're doing this stuff. I believe that they're doing this in order to create even more division in the population. I mean, that's what I believe. But
and it's a major distraction. I mean, the Dylan guy is just an actor. Like he's cashed in his paychecks, and who cares what happens? The fallout. I mean,
no, that guy
he
doesn't
just
care.
got, it was his time.
That dude, listen, I already told people, I don't know nothing about that guy, but I guarantee you that dude he was cast for that part. He's an actor. And they were like, he's very flamboyant, over the top, annoying, right? He checks all those boxes. He looks weird, right? And then he's masquerading as a woman. That's weird too. So all that's weird. So let's throw him out there. He's a very divisive person, right? And then people go to this TikTok and see that he's got millions and millions of, everyone's looking at millions and millions. Who are the millions? Who's following this dude? Right? But again, this is the world we live in.
You mentioned division, and it is a distraction. It's part of the distractions. Yeah. And, one of my biggest questions was, why does it have to be an entire month?
Right.
Our first responders don't get a month. Our military don't get a month. I could go on and on. Father's Day isn't for a month; it's a day.
We still have Father's Day.
But this has to be dragged out for a month. Why?
So I put that. She just read. She wasn't looking at the bullet point. She just read it.
Oh,
because I created this bullet point because of her, because she got attacked on social media for this question.
It was a simple meme that I didn't create. At the top was caskets of our fallen men and women that have protected our country with American flag draped across it. And at the other half was, a panel of men dressed in all kinds of ways and tons of makeup and everything. And it says, why do they get one day when these guys get a month? And I was attacked basically on my social media, surprisingly, by two straight Black guys liberal Black guys that, we've been following from the same town. They've been following each other for years.
They're very upset.
And I was called alt-right.
Fascist, alt-right, all that.
Over trying to stand up for our men and women that fought and died for this country. It was simple. And all I said was so sad and true. And the feed went on for over 24 hours.
But it got so bad that the guy that was yelling at her, at one point, he felt bad. Like, I think at one point he caught himself like, wait a minute, I think I sound a little bit emotional and ridiculous here.
Well, I said it to him. I said, why are you so emotional? And why do you care? I find it very weird that you're arguing with me over something that I meant no malice. Why are you mad at me? He said, you should be mad at the government. Well, I am.
Because I think that those people, here's what I think happens with people like that. They're plugged into the mainstream, right? So they're watching the mainstream news all day long and they're hearing this stuff all day long. Their brain is just, it's all this stuff going on, right? And then something like that, which didn't bash the LGBTQ community. It just asked a question. You can't even ask the question. That's the point.
And I had to clarify, and I said, guys, I never said they weren't allowed to exist. I never said that. Doubling down on that, I like RuPaul. I like RuPaul's Drag Race. I think a lot of women do. Yeah, that song was banging. But he was always in his lane. I mean, when he's dressed like a man, he looks like a classic man, and when he's ready to put the clothes on, he looks like a woman. And he had his own show, and it was stationed to one particular station that you'd find it on, in a time zone that wasn't available to children. Like, they weren't ever going after children. It was for adults, for adult males and women, if we wanted to watch it. The problem is, you know, inserting this into the children's programs, schools, taking children to pride parades. Those people really should be arrested, because you can't take children to strip clubs, and you should not be able to take children to drag shows or these festivals, because it is adult sexual energy that is there.
Why is this okay? Why is this even a discussion? This portion here, like this is what I don't understand. How there's anybody, like any sane person, because I know a lot of these people are just they're not all there. Because how in the world can you've seen some of the videos? They're on Twitter. I see grown men carrying 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds walking through a gay pride, parade. And there's the stuff that's going on. I mean, there's dudes walking around in thongs. There's dudes twerking in the middle of the street. Like, so I'm sitting there like, okay, that's no different than if I took my kid and walked into the strip club down the block. It's no different than that, right? Wouldn't everyone, they would want me thrown in jail. They wouldn't let me in the club. Like, if I showed up there with my kid, like, think about what they would look at me. Look at me, you're bringing your kid in here? Like, people would think, but if you go to gay pride parade, it's okay. You see why it doesn't make sense to me?
It's the same activity that's happening.
It doesn't make sense.
It happens to be outside.
It doesn't make any sense. But you will get people that will yell at you and say that you are transphobic, homophobic, all these different things, just because you don't want kids exposed to this stuff. That's what I see. See, and I'm going to read to you guys. And this is in liberal California, probably the most liberal place in the world. Fights erupt at anti-Pride Day protest outside LA school where trans teacher's flag was burned. This happened early this month. I think it was June the 2nd. What ended up happening was there was a Pride Day assembly at the school. I'm against that, first of all. Let me just say that, because I don't believe that we should be promoting any sexual orientation at an elementary school. That's just me. Now, if you guys disagree, share it in the comments. Tell me I'm crazy for saying that.
That's exactly why this happened.
But so this is at Satakoy Elementary School. These are little kids, right? So parents who were protesting against the display held up signs saying no pride in grooming and parental choice matters. Leave our kids alone. Guys, this is about people protecting their children. That's all this is.
Yeah.
Now, they can paint it as any kind of hate or whatever, because we know how the liberal media is always going to paint everything with the most negative brush that they possibly can. Like, we know that. Everybody knows that. If you guys are still watching that stuff, you probably can say, oh, yeah, he's right. But this is just about, and I can speak to this as a parent. I would feel the same way. If I found out my kid's going to, first of all, my kid wouldn't go that day, right? And somebody said that in here. Well, why don't you just keep him home that day, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they are trying to stand up for it as a whole. It's not just about the day,
right? So that's what it is. It got so bad that fights broke out. And what's disappointing about this is I would think that most logical people would be able to say, yeah, man, this is not a good idea. I could almost see if it was a high school. Like, I could almost see it.
What was wrong with that principal and vice principal and the staff that was all sitting around in the conference room on teacher planning day that there's every 4 weeks, because it's all the time? How did they all come to the conclusion that this was a good idea?
Well, and now the parents who were protesting released a statement. They said, we want to reiterate that our protest is in no way an attack on the LGBTQ community. We recognize the importance of promoting equality and acceptance for all individuals. However, if you scroll further down the article, where they had a problem was that in some of the material, I guess for the flyers and things they were passing out, is it was saying things like, it was saying that, hey, some kids have two moms, some kids have two dads, things like that's very confusing for elementary school children, right? Like, I don't think we should be really talking about this stuff to kids. I mean, that's, again, if you guys disagree, let me know.
It's too young. That the age that we start talking to children about their puberty and sexual and all that stuff is middle school.
Well, I
Fifth or
had
sixth grade.
seventh grade. I had anatomy class. That was the first time I missed Mrs. Burke, by the way, health and anatomy. That's when I first saw, the picture with the man and the woman. And we studied all the genitalia, and we had to take a test, and we had to, find all the spots and all that. I was in the seventh grade by then.
Yeah.
I was getting up in the middle school. I think what's happening is people are they're and that's why a lot of people. As a matter of fact, this lady, Corinne, she's 40 years old. She's from Armenia. She released a statement. I didn't come from Armenia for this. She said about LGBTQ plus education. She said, I came for freedom and for my children to learn about math and education, not for this. So that's where people are like, wait a minute, my kid just wants to go to school.
Yeah.
Like, we don't, like, why are we being bombarded? And guys, I would be saying the exact same thing if they told me that there were people showing up with strippers at the school. I'd be saying exactly the same thing. I would be saying exactly the same thing. This is not anything to do with against the community itself.
It has nothing to do with curriculum for learning. I mean, I mentioned this to Skyla, and I said, Skyla, and I told her about what happened to me on Facebook, and I said, don't you feel like this is a kind of more about sex? I mean, she looked at me and said, that's all they're talking about.
It's this incessant focus. It's an incessant focus on sex and gender and identity and all of these things. And you have to, at some point, start asking yourself, why are we focusing so much on this?
It's overload at this point.
Why?
I mean,
and this is the last, and this sums up the article. This is the last excerpt from the article. This individual says, I usually understand the background noise, and people pick a political side based on the background noise. But when kids become political pawns, that's where I draw the line. That sums it up perfectly. I think that sums it up for me. I think it sums it up for you. I'm extremely protective of I have one minor child. I'm extremely protective. So you are too. So this topic and stuff I get it with those of you who don't have children. I get it because I was speaking to somebody who doesn't have any kids. They could care less about this. Like, they do not care.
They don't care, but they also, and I was going to say this, you were reading my mind, but they can't understand it from the parent's point of view at all.
No, they don't get it. They don't, like, here's what they usually say. Well, why don't you just ignore it? That's what they say. As if they're not shoving it down your throat every 5 seconds. Like, as if you don't have to be worried about. Now, we're fortunate here in the state of Florida where this stuff is not happening. Let me just go ahead and say that. They aren't doing this in the schools here. Now, if you're in other states, this is happening. So you got to be, you got to be on a piece. That's why I told you, a lot of you parents, you got to get off the couch. You're not allowed to sit this one out if you care about your kids. Now, if you don't care, go back to sleep, turn the TV on, grab your Cheetos and sit down. Go back to your regularly scheduled program. But if you want to, educate your children and make sure that your children don't go off to college and then come back with 75 tattoos and a nose ring and purple hair.
Hey.
Okay. Okay. You better start talking to them about some of this stuff, because what happens is they're going to get out there in the real world, right? And then what's going to happen is they're going to get bombarded with this stuff. My gosh, can you imagine on the college campuses? My goodness, these poor kids are going to be bombarded with all of this stuff. Oh my God. And they're going to be confused. Oh my God. At the end of the day, it's grooming. People don't like it. I think that's where a lot of these folks draw the line. And then when you have companies coming out in support of these groups, it makes it look like the companies, they may not know. They may be oblivious to it, but it makes it look like you're complicit in it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us what you think, guys. Again, if I'm off base here, if we're off base, let us know in the comments. I'm sure there are going to be people who are going to say that, oh my gosh, you guys sound so phobic of something.
Well,
I get it.
What I want to understand is that this is all coming basically from the party of inclusion, right? And love is love.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to be able to be whoever you want, love whoever you want, and we should all just be open and liberal and free with that.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a freedom. But there's also one end of the stick is always an opposition. There's always, you have to pick up one side, you can have the other. So the other side should be allowed to also voice how they feel about it, without being canceled or called names.
That's fair.
Because if you are the party of inclusion and love, then why are you canceling people and calling them names because they don't like how you're presenting?
That's only if you agree with them. That's they didn't tell you that part. So it's only if you agree with. If you disagree with them, then they'll cancel you in a heartbeat. Like you must agree. Like and you must agree to the extent that they think that you should. That's the other problem. Like you can't just say, yeah, I'm cool with it, but I don't want it in my face and I don't want it around my kids. You can't do that.
They'll keep going.
They will keep pushing. They will keep that. These people are relentless. They're relentless. So again, I think it's I think it's a huge topic. I think it's a huge debate. I think there'll be more parts to this particular show. I'm sure there are people who feel strongly one way or the other. I'm pretty sure though most parents feel the way that we feel. I'm pretty sure. I mean, if I'm wrong, hey, tell me in the comments. You're crazy, man. you don't know what you're talking about. Hey, go ahead, because I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised given the way society is going. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up this topic today? It's a good one. We're going to have more of this.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Thank you for being here. Like and subscribe to the channel. More content coming. We're going to be firing away all cylinders. It's just heating up. Going into the summer, it's hot. So we're going to keep bringing hot content. See you next time. We're out.